Over the past 30 years, the robotic cat Doraemon has become a beloved companion to readers worldwide. Station Vietnam invited Professor Alisa Friedman from the Department of East Asian Languages and Literature at the University of Oregon to explore why Doraemon continues to hold a special appeal for fans around the world, especially in Vietnam. The exhibition From Doraemon to Doraemon, a 30-year journey in Vietnam held at the end of 2024, is a special and first-of-its-kind event to comprehensively review more than 3 decades of Doraemon in Vietnam. It covers the journey from the unauthorized Doraemon version in 1992, the officially licensed version starting in 1998, to the Doraemon version since 2010.
Thực tế thì mình hiện tại thì mình không đọc nữa, nhưng mà cũng có đôi lần thì mình đọc thì tên nhân vật thì có thay đổi một tí, theo xu hướng là hiện đại và đọc chuẩn chỉ hơn. Còn ngày xưa thì phát âm là nó thân thuộc hơn với người Việt Nam. Con mình hiện tại là còn chưa biết đọc, nhưng mà mình sẽ mua bộ truyện này cho con bắt đầu xem hình và tập đọc dần dần.
Tôi cũng cảm thấy rất vui khi mà chứng kiến các vị phụ huynh đến đây và giới thiệu với con mình là ngày xưa bố đọc cái chuyện này, mẹ đọc chuyện này, và nó khác với cả chuyện của con bây giờ một chút. Và con cái này tranh luận với cha mẹ rằng là cái khác đấy là đúng hay là sai. Thế thì cuối cùng mọi người sẽ đều đi đến một cái kết luận chung là nó khác thế nào thì chúng ta cũng đều rất là yêu thích cái nhân vật Doraemon này.
Welcome to another episode of Station Vietnam Chạm Việt Nam broadcast on channel VTC10, VTC Digital Television. Dear our audience, the Japanese comic book Doraemon or Doraemon has been a dear friend of generations of Vietnamese audience since the 1990s. It turns out Doraemon won the hearts of not only fandom in Vietnam, but also became a pop culture icon in many parts of the world. And today we sit down with Professor Dr. Alisa Friedman from the Department of East Asian Languages and Literatures from University of Oregon to find out more about how Doraemon still has a huge following till now. Thank you for joining us.
It's an honor to be here. Thank you for having me.
It can be said that Doraemon is an icon in many parts of the world, that it has been a dear friend of many generations worldwide. They grew up with Doraemon since the 1980s, 1990s, when they got married, and when they have children, they are still a die-hard fan of Doraemon. So what is the appeal of this comic?
Thank you for the question. I think it's lovely when a manga series can transcend generations. I think there's a few appeals. One, we can relate to the characters. You know, Nobita, sort of the lazy child who wants to do something or wants to have something, but can't afford the effort or the time or the money to do it. We could all relate to that. We could relate to the feeling of wanting to have a Doraemon. I wish I had one. I would love one. And all the wonderful gadgets that Doraemon pulls out of his 4D pouch. We could also, when we get older, perhaps relate to the parents, what it's like to raise a child and to gently press them to do well in life, to teach them to be a better person. I think also Doraemon, there's something about the stories that we always come back for more. We want to see, what is Doraemon going to show us this time? Is it going to be an anywhere door where we can travel around the world? Will it be a telephone booth that looks very old but does futuristic things? Or will we get to fly?
So what do you think is the key value that helps this comic book transcend time and generations like that?
I think Doraemon has a fascinating history in Vietnam. Coming in the 1990s, an unexpected success. The publishers didn't expect it to be so successful. and for it to catch on. Then as Vietnam began to change, for example, as ideas of what is publishing began to change, what are rights began to change, as the economy began to grow, Doraemon changed with it. New series were issued that had negotiated rights with Japan, had more of a tie to the producers in Japan. And the name Doraemon seems so accessible for Vietnamese children. It's so easy to say. Doraemon is difficult to say. And in Japanese, Dora Neko, that means stray cat. So Emon is an ending for a man. So the sort of the joke is he's Mr. Stray Cat, even though he's a robot from the 22nd century. When Doraemon came to America, it was not successful, but they tried to change the names to American names. Shizuka, one of the main female characters, became Sue.
Oh.
Yeah. Jaeon became Steve. The dorayaki, the cakes that Doraemon likes to eat, became hamburgers and pizza.
I see.
So every country likes to localize, but some localizations are more successful.
That brought me to another question, that how has Doraemon have an impact on the pop culture all over the world?
I think Doraemon has a strong impact on the popular culture around the world. On so many levels. One, Doraemon has inspired so many artists. There's also jokes. I hear there's some online series that put Doraemon in daily life. There are Japanese commercials that use Doraemon, so it has a lot of effect on art. Doraemon represents that kind of Japanese cute called kawaii, or a very lovable kind of cute, looking very vulnerable. For example, kawaii characters, the head is the same size as the body. So I think the drawing techniques. I just was at the exhibit on Doraemon here in Vietnam, and it's wonderful. And I love how all ages of people come to that exhibit. And on the table, they have a book. And people are drawing Doraemon in the book, at children's drawings mostly. And it's provided good models about marketing. For example, in 2008, Doraemon was made the anime ambassador, the ambassador of anime, Japanese animation, and manga in Asia. Because it's such a familiar character, it could help sell ideas of Japanese pop culture abroad. So it also has a kind of power as an ambassador.
I can take myself as an example for a fan of Doraemon in Vietnam, or Doraemon. I'm more familiar with that name. And we had a talk with Doraemon enthusiasts who are people at my age or the later generations in Hanoi just recently. So I would like the audience of VTC to have a look at how we enjoyed Doraemon and talked about it.
Thank you for that wonderful experience.
Okay.
Because of all his special gadgets that can help Nobita, and they're just so awesome. But also because he's also a very kind-hearted person, or should I say kind-hearted robot.
We got a lot of tests at school, so a lot of pressure that we got from both, schools and the parents, and even like the peer pressure. Yes, I think that it's like.
This is how you can relate,
yeah,
right?
It's how we relate to our life. Yeah, it's really the story of our lives too.
Of course, they have bad points as well, but they still come along until very long journey in the Doraemon. So we will see that the connection between people and people.
We know that the original Doraemon was discontinued when the author passed away in 1996, if I remember correctly. But since then, there have been reprints. There have been supplemental versions of Doraemon. So what do you think of these products?
I think they're wonderful, and every year or so, I think every year we get a new Doraemon movie.
Yeah.
And it's great to look forward to that once a year. And some of them recently have been very sad. Like my favorite is the first Stand By Me, Doraemon Stand By Me. But it's when the characters are older. It's very sad. But I think the series keeps going with reprints and collector's editions. And I think it's great for generations to be able to pass on the story to each other. And hopefully new translations to the continuance in other global languages. It would be nice to have more English translations, for example.
And for us here in Vietnam, whenever a movie adaptation of Doraemon is released, it easily climbs to the top
Yes.
of the best-selling tickets in every kind of cinema here. It's an easy win for any Doraemon anime series to come to the cinema.
I love that. When I was in Ho Chi Minh City, I went to the movie theater I wasn't able to see the film. I hope to see it soon. But I watched the audience go into the movie and the excitement of the children to see the poster for the new film, to think about where the characters are going to go next, where they're going to travel. It's very exciting.
And we know that you recently attended a roundtable talk with the very first persons in Vietnam to work on the Doraemon printed here in 1992 and later years, and they talked about the matter of copyrights. So what is your takeaway from that roundtable talk?
Thank you. And that roundtable talk is something I will always remember. It was very inspiring to meet Ms. Liên, one of the first people to bring Doraemon to Vietnam, to have literally a hand in the creation of the series. Copyrights are very complex, and my students have various mixed feelings toward them, and I do myself. But I think the history of copyrights and Doraemon is a very good lesson that we can learn about globalization and localization, about education and development, and about international relations. It was fascinating going to the exhibit, and I'm very grateful to the organizer Chu Kim for giving me a tour and pointing out the book covers. When copyrights became more official, when Vietnam entered the Berne Agreement, for example, there is several changes in how the series is marketed. The characters' names become more the official Japanese names. The logo changes. The series also begins to look more like a manga series. The pages are larger, they're Japanese-sized manga books. It begins to resemble the Japanese series more directly. And I really think it's very generous on the part of the creator of Doraemon to give the money from the royalties that he would have received from Vietnam to establish a scholarship for Vietnamese children, because that makes Doraemon even more helpful to children in Vietnam.
So thank you for a very meaningful talk. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Thank you for asking such wonderful questions.
Dear audience, it has been a truly insightful conversation with Professor Lisa Friedman about a beloved robot cat who has captured our hearts for decades. Doraemon stands as a shining example of how culture can unite people from different corners of the world through shared values. In Vietnam, many parents who grew up as Doraemon fans are now passing on the magic to their own children, allowing them to explore the enchanting yet familiar world of Doraemon. Through these adventures, young ones learn the importance of love, family, and friendship, just like Doraemon and his friends do. And that concludes this week's episode of Station Vietnam. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.